All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're figuring out what it would actually take to survive just one single day in the Victorian era, a time that looked incredibly proper on the outside, but was, quite frankly, wildly dangerous underneath it all.
Picture this. You wake up in 1852. You've got a top hat, a slight chest infection, and literally zero reasons to feel confident about your survival odds. We're about to unpack the reality of a world where their definition of normal was, well, honestly, it was truly deeply unhinged.
First up, toxic beauty and decor, or the lethal reality of the Victorian home. And just look at this bizarre contrast. People were deliberately slathering lead all over their faces and wrapping their living rooms in arsenic-laced Shields green wallpaper, all just to look affluent. You'd have this ghostly pale complexion from lead-based pearl powder sinking right into your pores, while simultaneously breathing in trimethyl arsine gas off-gassing from your glorious, trendy green walls. It was essentially a slow race to the bottom, right in your own living room.
Now, check out this staggering number. 100 million. To put that scale into perspective, by the 1870s, there were 100 million square yards of this arsenic-dyed wallpaper hanging up in British households, just slowly poisoning families as lethal mold naturally converted the wallpaper dye into a highly toxic gas.
Even getting dressed wasn't a routine, you guys. It was a literal endurance test. You were rearranging your internal organs just to visually prove your moral discipline. Corsets compressed waists so hard they displaced livers and actually fractured lower ribs. It was so bad that fainting couches were built as necessary infrastructure to catch passing out women. And if that wasn't enough, they used belladonna, yes, deadly nightshade, as eye drops to dilate their pupils, and literally ate arsenic wafers to intentionally suppress blood flow for that sought-after pale look. Talk about a daily dose of self-destruction.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the Victorian Medicine Cabinet. We're talking chemicals, cocaine, and absolute confidence.
So the crucial takeaway here is that pharmacists were basically operating as incredibly well-stocked dealers. Just look at the active ingredients in these everyday patent medicines. You've got Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup, packed with morphine and alcohol, just to keep teething babies quiet. Then there's Vin Mariani tonic wine, casually boasting 6 milligrams of cocaine per ounce for fatigue. And Bayer? They were literally selling heroin as a non-addictive cough remedy. You really can't make this stuff up.
And then, of course, there was laudanum. Families bought this over-the-counter tincture of opium, dissolved in alcohol, by the way, by the bottle and took it by the spoonful. They were treating everything from headaches to menstrual cramps, basically managing the overwhelming stress of Victorian life with total chemical assistance. Imagine casually giving your baby an opiate just so you could finish a brutal 12-hour factory shift in peace.
But hey, when the heavy narcotics failed, they turned to electricity. Electricity was brand new and seemed almost miraculous, so doctors optimistically assumed that strapping a zinc and copper battery to your body would cure nervous exhaustion or general weakness. The medical establishment jumped in with both feet, aggressively prescribing electric belts and baths to pass galvanic currents right through the body. It was a time of radical, completely unearned optimism.
Next up, surviving the outside world. Surviving the filthy streets, manure, miasma, and the great stink.
To really set the scene here, look at this number, 50,000. That is the number of working horses walking the streets of London in 1890 alone. Now do the math. Each horse is dropping 15 to 35 pounds of manure every single day. The atmosphere wasn't just smog. It was a literal compound of mud and organic matter that soaked right through your shoes and completely coated the air you were breathing.
And who do you think was cleaning all this up? Well, often it was kids. The entire Victorian economy ran on cheap, small labor, whether it was 5-year-olds pulling coal carts in the pitch dark or children sweeping manure just to buy a meal. If you follow the timeline, reform was agonizingly slow. It really wasn't until compulsory education kicked in around 1870 that they finally started getting children away from labor, simply by occupying their time. Oh, and they didn't officially restrict child access to gin until the 1920s.
Which brings us to Section 4, Crushing Social Etiquette Rules, the exhausting performance of civilization.
Let's dive into the calling card protocol. This is basically their version of social media, but it was this vicious, unforgiving class sorting mechanism. First, you hand a precisely engraved card to the servant, and you had to fold the upper right corner to prove you actually delivered it in person. Then, you wait to see if the hostess is at home to receive you. If you actually got invited in, you had to stay exactly 15 to 30 minutes.
Any less was a direct insult, and any more was a huge imposition. One wrong fold, and it was a devastating social error.
Now, if you somehow navigated that minefield and made it to a dinner party, the rules only multiplied. A dinner party wasn't about relaxing and connecting with friends. Oh no, it was this architectural performance where you had to use the correct asparagus tongs and keep all genuine opinions entirely to yourself. Look at these forbidden topics. No money, no religion, no politics, no personal health, and definitely no gossip about others' health. Basically nothing disagreeable. You performed civilization convincingly for 3 hours, and then you went home.
Finally, we reached the last act of Victorian life, the business of death and mourning as an industry.
Mortality was so frequent back then that they literally had to turn it into an art form. Take postmortem photography. At a time when getting a photo taken was incredibly expensive, a child's death was counterintuitively the exact moment an image became both possible and necessary. Families would actually prop up recently deceased loved ones for a final, natural-looking portrait with the living. It seems a bit macabre to us now, but it was really an act of profound grief, doing the absolute best they could with this brand new technology.
They also transformed that grief into physical decor with mourning jewelry. You didn't just feel sadness, you wore the deceased person physically. It became a booming craft to weave a loved one's hair into elaborate rings, brooches, or even quiet, permanent pieces of household wall displays.
And then there's this, which brilliantly illustrates a very real, well-documented fear of the time: being buried alive during rapid cholera outbreaks. Enter the safety coffin. Imagine waking up mistakenly buried underground. You'd move, which would trigger a spring-loaded lid mechanism, sending a flag shooting right up to the surface. From there, you'd ring a bell or literally speak through a built-in breathing tube to signal for rescue. Just imagine the sheer absolute terror required to necessitate a coffin equipped with all of this, just in case your doctor got it wrong.
So what does this all mean? Well, to quote the idea here, the whole elaborate, dangerous, rule-governed, chemically adventurous project of Victorian life was at its heart an attempt to impose order on a world that was changing faster than anyone knew how to manage. These were people caught halfway between an ancient world of candles and horses and the terrifying new reality of massive cities, electricity, and industrial factories. They made strict rules, slathered on toxic cosmetics, and drank heavy narcotics because the alternative was pure uncertainty.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. As you sit there safely in your modern, filtered, arsenic-free air, breathing deeply without a corset fracturing your ribs, do you think you could have survived a single day of it? Could you have handled the collision of the ancient and the modern any better? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks for exploring this deeply unhinged era with us, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.